You know what? If you told me that you predicted back in January that a Russell Crowe road rage movie would be one of the year's saviors of cinema, congratulations, you're a genius and a liar. Hey everybody, I'm Dan Murrell, and this sounds weird to say. There's a new movie hitting theaters nationwide this weekend. Well, not quite nationwide. The theaters, at least that are open nationwide, will be showing the Russell Crowe road rage movie Unhinged. And if you hadn't heard about this movie, nobody really had up until a few months ago when it staked its claim as the first movie to be released back in theaters across the country. It has shifted dates a few different times to be the first movie released nationwide, and it's been released in a few markets outside of the United States where movie theaters have been open. But for those of you that don't know about the movie, it stars Russell Crowe as an angry motorist who is credited just as the man, who sets his sights on a mother named Rachel, played by Karen Pistorius, and her son, mowing down people, friends, family, you name it, all in the name of getting an apology for a little bit of a horn honking incident at a red light that is really the inciting incident for this whole movie. This is not a changing lanes type situation where there's a traffic thing and it causes a bad problem for somebody else and then he goes after the other guy. You remember that Ben Affleck Samuel L. Jackson movie, right? Probably not. Anyway, this is just a crazy guy. Russell Crowe is just insane. He's a psychopath. He's a murderer. We know this from the second the movie starts, so it's no big revelation. It has the seeds for what could possibly be a good movie, but let's break this down to the nitty-gritty here. If it weren't for this situation, and if it weren't for the fact that this movie had planted its flag as the first movie being re-released in theaters, nobody would probably have ever heard about it. It would have debuted in 6th or 7th place, maybe on some lazy summer weekend, or possibly it might have gone straight to streaming. You might have been watching it on Amazon Prime. You might have been watching it on Netflix. The only notable thing about this film really is the fact that it is the first movie coming back. And I think that that was the goal of the studio, of Solstice, the studio behind this movie. Because this is not a very good movie. It's really not. You've seen this before. Obviously, the prestige here is Russell Crowe. If Russell Crowe wasn't in this movie, then most of the interest that you might have anyway would evaporate. But he doesn't really give his performance too much beyond. I really think that the last half of the movie, 85% of his dialogue is literally just growling, just going like, "Arr, arr, arr, arr." I'm not going to mess with Russell Crowe, and you shouldn't either, on or off screen.
We seem to have developed a fundamental inability to apologize to anyone for anything.
So you got that, I guess. You have an intimidating villain in Russell Crowe, but this is one of those movies where the screenplay requires, in order for the movie to unfold the way that it does, every single character to act as stupidly and as wrong-headedly as you can possibly imagine. The script is contrived. It is beyond contrived. And it really is, like, you have to walk into this movie. It's not just turn off your brain at the movie. You have to assume that everyone in the movie has also turned off their brains, because only complete idiots would do what most of the characters in this movie do. Karen Pistorius acquits herself as well as she can, given the material that she has to work with. I don't really lay this at the feet of any of the actors. It really is just a very been there, done that kind of thing. I think that the casting of Russell Crowe is really the only remarkable thing about this movie, other than its release date. I think I would actively say, don't go see this movie. It's not worth it. Plus, if I'm being honest, it's not that I don't have a stomach for violence. I certainly don't have a problem with most of the violence that you see in movies, but it's just an unpleasant movie. And if you haven't sat in a theater for many, many months, don't pick this one to be your first theatrical experience back, because it's not even really fun. It's not even a fun watch. And sometimes these movies, people define fun in different ways. It's not fun from a suspenseful angle. It's not fun from a comeuppance angle or a revenge angle. It's just not really an enjoyable watch. It's a horrible person treating everyone else in the movie horribly for almost the entire runtime, with very minimal payoff to any of this drudgery that we've gone through in the previous 90 minutes. So on an artistic level, I don't recommend that you go. On a health level, I don't recommend that you go. On an experiential level, I don't recommend that you go. This ain't it, Chief. this ain't the one. If you're trying to pick the one, maybe wait till next week. We'll see what New Mutants has in store for us. We'll see what other movies have in store for us. But I would not recommend that you select Unhinged to be your first foray out into theaters. And honestly, even if theaters were running the way that they are that they ran, if none of this had happened, which would be wonderful, I still wouldn't really recommend that you go see this movie. But I also don't really think that this movie would be getting a nationwide release, and certainly not with this much hype and advertisement and scale if none of this had ever happened. If you do choose to see it, that's fine. Please be safe. Please be careful. Please take into account your health and the health of others. And one side note on this review, and it's a really weird situation that I've actually, in 4 years, never encountered before as a movie critic. As I mentioned, theaters aren't open here in Los Angeles, and Salsa Studios, the studio behind the film, sent to many critics a screening link for you to watch at home. And I do not for one second take for granted that getting things like screening links or even critic screenings are a privilege, and it was a privilege to be able to watch this film. I didn't have to pay for it. I was able to watch it at home. They made accommodations for critics, and I think that is very admirable, and I appreciate that very much. But on the screening link that I got, it requested that all reviews be held until the day of release. That's why this review is coming out at 9:01 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 12:01 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, because that is technically the day of release. But I encountered something that I have never encountered before, which is that I think largely because the movie had opened overseas, reviews had come out already overseas, and many outlets, if you look online, if you look in print, many outlets, many of my peers have had reviews for this movie up for days. They started coming out on Monday or Tuesday. I contacted the studio. I said, hey, a lot of my peers, a lot of my, this is a very, not competitive field, but certainly a crowded field, have put their reviews out already. I've been given an embargo of Friday. Was I given that information mistakenly? And I was told, no, we still request that all critics hold their reviews, but, some people just haven't. I basically said, I feel like if I don't put this review out now, I'm going to be behind the curve. And the studio said to me, well, our wishes are still that you hold this review until release date. So I did that. It's not a complaint necessarily. I mean, the studio made the request. Maybe there was a miscommunication or whatever else. It's really more of just like noting how unprecedented this time is. I mean, usually these things like movie releases are a well-oiled machine. And even when it comes to embargo dates and when movies reviews are released, etc., we are way out of norms and way out of right field or left field or wherever the hell we're supposed to be. We are entering uncharted territory here. So right along with all of us. And it's not just me. Everybody in the critical field, everyone in the critical community, we are all trying to adjust to this thing, and really adjusting it at a time when we don't even really know what's going on. So I will be back next week with a review of the New Mutants, if I can. I don't know how or where or when that's going to happen, but I will review the movie as soon as I possibly can, and we'll go to Tenet after that, and we'll see what happens. So this is the first movie back. This is also the first step as we try to resume some kind of normalcy as far as reviews go here on the channel, as we build this channel in general. So thank you for watching. If you want to see even more stuff like this, please check me out on Patreon, patreon.com/Dan Murrell. We do a monthly movie club. We do producer commentaries. You can also check me out over on Instagram at MurrellDan. You can find me on Twitter at MurrellDan. And of course, thank you so much for watching me here on YouTube. Please be sure to like, share, subscribe, and stay tuned for my next review, whenever that might be. And also be sure to check out my coverage of Saturday's huge event, DC Fandom. There's already stuff coming out about it today. Ben Affleck coming back and logos and all of this crazy news. Be sure to stay tuned right here on the channel. I will be covering that news as it comes out throughout the day on Saturday and wrapping up everything that comes. I think that we're going to have a lot of stuff to talk about over this weekend, so please keep your eye out on that. Be sure to subscribe to get notifications and hit that bell. And until next time, thanks for watching.